On this episode of the Mamas con Ganas podcast, I'm here with my husband, Dr. Mark Limasani. Welcome, baby.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. I
It's been a
appreciate it.
while since you've been on the
I
podcast.
know it took me a while to get here. So
And I actually
I'm
convinced him last week to film an episode in Spanish.
that went pretty well, I think.
Yes. And we're talking about, because these 2 weeks we're talking about how to manifest abundance with your partner and with your spouse or with your loved one. So if you are somebody who it lives with somebody who's your partner, your spouse, and you want to manifest abundance together, this episode is for you. So yeah, I think the subject is something that we're very passionate about because I think we've navigated our our set of difficulties when it comes to finances and when it
Absolutely.
yes, and I think that but however, I think that because we've overcome these difficulties and we've basically become more united
Hmm.
when it comes to finances, when it comes to manifesting abundance, and we do consider ourselves an abundant couple, then I think, that's why we want to share like the things that we put into practice with you so that you could also manifest abundance with your couple.
I completely agree. I think this is a journey, just like your mental health, your oral health, your physical health.
He's a dentist, that's
y-
why he
ex-
says that.
your financial health is something that you're constantly improving on, you're constantly looking after. It's not something that you can say, okay, well, we did it this year, so now we don't have to look at it again. It's
Yes.
all constant. It's in constant flux and movement. You take on more responsibility at times, and it's just a way of learning how to manage it and how to manage it in a healthy manner as two people that are on this life journey together.
Yes, that are coming together and that want to make amazing things happen and that want to create a very like sound financial life.
Yes,
And I love
good.
how you said that it's not something that you do once, like you do once a year
Yeah.
or once a month, and then all of a sudden you forget about it. It's sort of like, being fit. You
Yes.
just stay fit. You have to go to the gym and work at it and keep working at it.
Consistently.
Yes, consistently, like forever. It's sort of like one of those things you have to promise yourself that you're going to be responsible with forever. Just like also like your spirituality. You can't just, pray one day and expect to feel spiritual all the time.
Yeah, or you can't rely on your spirituality only when in times of need, like you've lost a loved one, so on and so forth. I mean, if you have a constant spiritual practice and you're in that headspace, moving through those challenges in life allows for you to rely on that foundation. So similarly in finances, it's a similar concept in that if you have a solid base as a couple, you know where you're both coming from, you know how what your plans are and what your goals are and so on and so forth. Then whenever you have challenges, well, you always rely on those foundations that you've created. So it's always something that stays
Absolutely.
with you.
And we were discussing in Spanish that this subject is just as controversial as, let's say, like intimacy or sex. Like, money is one of those things that really triggers people, and
Hmm.
particularly like the way you grew up and the way your parents saw money and the way you saw your parents interact or the way that they felt about money has a lot to do with perhaps with how you perceive money yourself. Like, one of the first things that as a couple is important to do is to discuss like what is the other person, how does the other person see money, like what does money, like what is money for them, what is it
Hmm.
for? Because I think in starting out that conversation with your partner, you'll first of all you'll find out some things that perhaps you didn't know, and you might realize that your views about money might be completely different. Like, some people think money is all about having fun and spending it and buying beautiful things and creating a beautiful life, like luxurious life. Other people see money as more of like security, and for them, they just see something to put away to, so that they can have, so that they can feel more secure because that's the way that they saw money. That you want to store it, you don't want to touch it, you don't want to spend it.
Hmm.
Um,
and it's a question. It's not a question about having one point of view that's right and another point of view that's wrong.
yes,
It's an idea of exploring all points of view and finding what works best for you in your family dynamic. And
yes,
whenever you find that there is a pain point because there is a certain perception with regards to money that your spouse or might have, then you start exploring that a little bit further so that you guys both meet each other halfway. If one is more of a spender and the other is more of a saver, the idea is not to move the needle entirely in the saving, don't do anything, and don't take any risk with your money and don't enjoy it, but it's also not to go the other, go the other route and just spend everything and not be disciplined with your money as well. So it's that hybrid. It's finding that space between the two of you that you can coexist and allow for yourself to flourish.
Yes. Or if you're finding out that both of you are spenders, then perhaps there's something to look at there. Maybe that's why things haven't gone very well, why you're so in debt,
That's good.
or why you're so like you just don't, you can't manage, you can't seem to have money or to keep money in your
Mm-hmm.
bank account. Or if you both are like super, what is it called, stingy, and like don't want to spend anything, and then your guys are complaining because you guys keep things separately, and neither of you wants to like put the money down when it comes to paying for something, then there's something to look at there. Like, how could you step into a relationship with money that might be a little bit more balanced, like Mark says. I think between the both of us, we've really learned what it is to, I think we both grew up in different households, obviously, with different points of views with regards to money, but we've learned a lot from each other.
Absolutely. And again, it's like understanding where your money mindset comes from gives you and your spouse a much clearer understanding of, okay, well, this is why my spouse has this perception,
Yes.
so we can work with that. And in certain instances, if there's misconceptions that are not serving you, so certain perceptions about money that are disempowering, or if there's certain ways that money was being used or you'd seen money used in the past as a way of controlling or a way of dominating in a couple, then you could kind of delete that way of looking at money and kind of focus or add certain ways of looking at money that are better serving for the couple.
Yes, that's huge. I mean, you just touched upon a topic that is so, it's like a lot of people use money as a way of control. So, and it could be both ways. It could be the man controlling the woman. He doesn't want to he's the breadwinner. He controls the finances. He sort of treats her like a little girl, doesn't want her to get too involved. Or it might be the woman who's actually not taking responsibility. And because it is work, like looking
Mm-hmm.
at the numbers is a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time.
And it's interesting because oftentimes in that dynamic, you would interview both, and both one would have a perception. Let's say in the circumstance that you described, where the man is the one that's controlling and the woman is the one that doesn't deal with it. You'd interview the man, and then he would say, "Well, she's not interested. It's not something that she wants to
Yes.
partake in. Every time I try and bring it up, she gets overwhelmed, and
Yes.
that
Or she wants to spend everything and she's not responsible
yeah,
with it.
that would be one
Hmm.
possibility. And then you interview the woman in that dynamic, and it would be something to the effect of, oh well, he doesn't want to let me in. He doesn't want me to have an understanding. So there's all these like misconceptions that are created around money. And we just gave the example of the man and the woman. I mean,
Yeah, but it could be the
it
opposite
could
way
be
around.
man woman, it could be woman woman, it could be
Woman, yeah,
man man.
man,
I
man,
mean,
yeah.
it's just any dynamic of any type of a relationship could create those challenges. So that's what's worth exploring. And when you come at it from a place of authenticity, in a sense that if let's say the dynamic of husband and wife in this circumstance, and the you're the wife, and you're realizing that you don't have that much knowledge in that space, and as a husband, let's say you've been the one that's been more well versed in finance, well then bring your partner along. It's just like as if if you're very fit and you're very active and you've kind of kept up with that in your life,
Yes.
and you meet someone that hasn't really had that lifestyle. They're interested, but they're really not, they haven't kind of gotten that bug. Help them out. I mean, that's your wife, that's your husband, that's your partner, that's your boyfriend or girlfriend, that's someone that you're wanting to lift up.
Yes.
Lift your person up, take them back from to square one, basics.
Yeah, don't
And
treat them like a little girl or
yeah,
like a little boy. Like, I think that, and I think there's nothing more empowering, honestly. Like, now that we're speaking like this, frankly, there's nothing more empowering for a couple than for both people to be involved in the money conversation,
absolutely.
and for both people to be on board and like, yeah, on board with the spending habits, with the budget, with the investments that are happening, with everything that's happening in terms of money, because it makes you feel more united. There's nothing like there's one. It's one of the things. It's like intimacy again. It's like sex, that when you guys are in sync with that, it brings you so much closer to your partner.
Yeah, and
It
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, don't mean to interrupt you, but
No.
it almost falls in line with the shadow work. And by shadow work, I mean exploring elements of your personality or your couple's dynamic that are a little uncomfortable. So the way, so
or
if
very
or
uncomfortable.
very uncomfortable. So
This is because this subject, like we talk
yeah,
about it now
it
like
is.
this, because it's taken us a lot of work. But I would say it was always like the point of um that delicate we would have a lot of disagreements
Yeah,
when it came to this
and hang-ups.
and a lot of hangups. And I think a lot of it was because we needed to have more conversation
Hmm.
about it. I think the more conversations we had about the topic, the more we realized that we weren't so far off. That we were both wanting to save. We were both wanting to also have a nice life where we did, we took beautiful trips and bought beautiful things, but like in a balance that made sense for the both of
Yeah,
us.
and we're charitable and
Yes.
gave back and so on. It's like it's the whole a comprehensive picture of the financial dynamic. And it's interesting because there's this way of working that doesn't work in couples, where when you approach a subject that is thorny, as opposed to stepping into that space, unpacking it, and really kind of removing all the kind of the trigger points associated with it, you just step away from it.
Yes.
And sex is similar. It's
Sex is
like, oh, my
similar.
wife has an issue with X and Y and Z. She has trust issues, let's say, from a previous relationship or something like that. Oh, I'm not going to talk about that. Or I'm always, every time that subject comes about, I'm going to avoid it, or I'm going to behave in a certain manner to kind of curtail to that, to what had happened in the past. That eventually, over the course of time, that ends up catching up with
Oh
you.
my, absolutely. I mean, it's so important, and I think you brought it up in the Spanish episode, and this particular, what you're trying to get at is vulnerability, right?
Yes,
It's
correct.
that the importance of being able to step into vulnerability while you're having these very intimate conversations
Yes.
of finance, because it is a very intimate conversation,
Yeah, and
and it brings
being
up a lot of shame.
correct.
A lot of shame.
Yes.
This money brings up a lot of shame. People see some people see money as like an evil thing or something bad, and particularly if you've been taught that, like, oh no, well, money has to be put, if it's an extreme point of view, then it's usually seen as money is something, as something bad. And so when you have that's happening in the dynamic or in the headspace of one person in the couple, and the other person's not understanding where the other person's coming from,
Yeah.
but until you step into that vulnerability, you won't really understand the other person's point of view.
And oftentimes what that could look like in a conflict is, a trigger point is brought to the table, and the other person will just attack. So you would say something to the effect of, but something to the effect of, oh, but it's important for us to kind of take a look at this. And then I would say something, oh yeah, but all you care about is money. You're so materialistic.
Yeah.
And then, as opposed to kind of, okay, well, let's dial it back, let's kind of explore that a little bit, and you go on an attack, and then it's just a fight. And then what might happen is, oh no, we love each other, it's okay, and then you don't talk about it again.
Yeah.
That's
Like
not.
the biggest
Yeah,
mistake.
yeah, there's no resolution when you
Yes.
do something. So the vulnerability perspective, it would be something to the effect of, wow, you know what, when you brought that up, it really made me uncomfortable, made me feel like I'm giving something up, or it made me when you bring up that topic, it makes me feel like I don't have control, or that I feel like I'm going to be tricked again, or
Yeah.
something of that nature. And then you get a better understanding of where their thinking is at. So if you can see it and shed light on it, then you can explore it. You can see it for what it is. You can understand where it's coming from, and you could delete the part that doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
that's not working for you.
And I want to say something here because you made me think of something. And I think it's like a point that's very important. If you want to attract abundance as a couple, one of the major blocks to abundance would be like competition of the couple.
Mm,
Like if you're in constant competition with each other in terms of like, yeah, well, you paid for this and I didn't, like, what about when, you're always like, when it's like always tit for tat when it comes to money. And that is not, it's just like, that's like the constant way of being, and it's always like a money competition, and it's
mm,
always trying to like separate, I'm here, you're there, and like that just brings you more apart than
yeah.
closer together.
And resentment,
Yes, and more
and if it's
resentment.
not brought about, or if those little, see, the thing is that oftentimes those conversations are insidious. What I mean by that is, it's an offhanded comment that happens. Sometimes it could be at like a dinner party, and it's an offhanded comment. Yeah, well, like, as if Valentina knows anything about that. And it seems so innocent, right? And
Yeah.
everyone laughs, or someone, you're telling a story, and then a little comment like that happens, and when you're not willing to approach it, or you're not willing to step into that, then the other person stays quiet, and you go to bed that night and things are a little colder. Things don't feel as warm as they were before that conversation. Well, why? Well, that little comment, that little joke, that little thorn, that little dart that you just threw, it doesn't come without consequences,
Yeah.
and it builds, right?
Yep.
It you because you've
Absolutely.
created that foundation with this. My spouse doesn't know anything about money, or doesn't care to know, or spends too much, or whatever it is. All of those things keep coming up, and unless you address them, they keep coming up, and then they resurface in other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk about honesty too. That's another thing that might be discussed at like a dinner table where somebody says, "Oh, I got this, but don't tell my husband." Like there's like a lot of couples, unfortunately, that hide things from each other, like financial things from each other. And I don't think that's the step towards abundance as a couple. Like I think the more open you are about it, the more honest you are with it, and
Yep.
particularly when let's say you make a mistake,
Yes.
like I don't know, paid for a course that you wanted to take and then you didn't use the course and you spent money on it. Well, you kind of have to be like take self
Yeah, you have to
responsibility
own it.
and own it
You have
and
to own
tell
it.
your couple, and then when your couple complains about it and says, "Yeah, babe, like, you blew that money and you never did that course," you have to be able to say, "You know what? You're right.
Yeah.
That was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that."
And moving forward, it's so the beautiful thing about a couple is the ability to keep one another in check. And it would
Yes.
be it would be a circumstance
Yes.
where, okay,
Like
like,
physically too, like you were
yes,
saying, even with exercise, but with
yes,
money also.
yep, yeah,
Yes.
you spent money on a course, you didn't end up using it, but then you're thinking that another course is going to solve the problem that you're having. Well, let's take a step back. Let's see, you had that idea with regards to that course that you spent money on that you didn't use. Why is it that you didn't fulfill on that promise? And then once you kind of unpack that, you realize that, okay, well, maybe sometimes I'm spending money to solve a problem without really putting in the work that's required to solve it. You know what I mean? So that's all part of that the honesty
And,
process.
to go even further with that thought process is the idea that, like, if you think that your partner is there to keep you comfortable, that is not a way for growth.
That's good.
Like, I think
That is
Mark and I work
good. That's
because
good.
him and I
That's
work
good.
because we
That's so
don't keep
good.
each other
Wow.
comfortable
Yep.
at all. And we allow for that discomfort to
Yep.
be there.
That's
Like
good.
when I call him out on something or he calls me out on something,
I hate it.
we hate it.
You hate it. You hate it. That's normal.
Yes.
But the thing is that the
But then we
more,
grow
yes,
and we
the
learn from
more,
each other.
correct. The more you get used to stepping into that, the more you get used to unpacking, the more you get used to shedding light on those shadows, the less triggering it becomes,
Yep.
because you're so used to going through that motion. It's like when you've started up a new exercise routine and you're saying, okay, well, on this day, this day, this day, I'm going to commit to it. Well, and the first time that you wake up and you say, I'm so tired, I don't feel like it, that feels like, oh my God, that's the truth. Whereas every other person or people that have been used to conditioning themselves to say, okay, I'm gonna wake up, it's gonna be 5 a.m. and I'm not gonna feel like getting out of bed. I know what that feels like. I've done that 100 times before. I'm just not even gonna listen to it. And you're like, okay, yeah, I don't want to get up, I don't want to go out, but I'm gonna do it anyways. When you don't train your mind to be able to step into something that you don't feel like doing or you don't feel like hearing, then you keep avoiding it. And
Yeah.
avoidance is not the key to freedom.
And like, if you really believe that your couple's there, that they love you and that they're there for your best interest, those things that trigger you, that they say that might be hurtful or that might be like, those are the things that you should listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's usually like a point and place where you can actually learn and grow.
Yep,
Yeah,
that's good.
that's very good.
So just to kind of to dial in certain key concepts that we want to talk about, another idea is, there's interestingly enough, abundance, money, and so on. There's I would say like the tangible aspect of it, and there's the somewhat, let's
Woo
call it
woo.
woo
Yeah, the
aspect.
manifesting, because we're
Yeah.
here to manifest money, right? So
Yes.
there's like the fun aspect, the woo woo aspect that's like magical, right? Things align in a way where when you're working towards it, you're like, wow, things are just
Yes.
lining up. The
1 + 1
universe.
equals 12.
Yes.
Like, it's just, whoa, I
Whoa.
was not
Yes.
expecting that.
And we do believe in like the magic. Definitely, we've seen it like present in our lives. But then there's the other part, like Mark is talking about, and it's very practical, like boring side of it that must exist there, that has to be there as well if you want to manifest abundance. Because there's something very different between, we spoke about this in the Spanish episode, something very different, you know, dreaming is very different from manifesting. So
Good.
dreaming is just sort of wishing that things, you're like, oh, I wish I had this
Or
house.
let's visualize
Let's
the house,
visualize.
and let's put ourselves in the circumstance. Well, let's visualize how it would feel, this, that. Okay, that's awesome.
And it's necessary.
And it's necessary. It's part of the process.
Yes.
But okay, what tangible measures are you taking in this day, this week, this month to gently inch yourself, or to put yourself in the space where you can attract the opportunity that get you to that, to what it is that you want?
Yes.
So there's the concrete, like, I'm going to call 3 people to get these deals done. And then there's the manifestation, the visualization of,
Yes.
this is the way I will feel when I step into this space.
Yes, when I have this amount of money, when I
Yes.
have this amount of money in my savings or in my bank account,
Yep.
in my portfolio or whatever it is. It's that, but also, like you said,
And
it's like
also,
the step, and also, yes, thank you. And also, like, stepping into that, like the daily actions, because
yes,
the visualization is a preparation for taking the actions
that's good.
that will bring you to where you want to be.
And,
And that might take you somewhere even better than what you visualized to begin with.
100%. And another very concrete aspect of what we were talking about with regards to, having those open conversations, like a very, like, real way would be something to the effect of, okay, so, what would be a threshold of spending that we would both agree and feel comfortable with, where we don't necessarily have to ask for the other person's authorization?
Yeah.
And
And it might differ completely from one couple to another,
completely, and you
depending on budget.
and depending on budget. And that's where having that open, honest conversation about that in particular, because what if it was a circumstance where I don't have to tell my wife anything, I make the money? Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, but she's, in the dynamic of, let's say, we have that more traditional household of, one is the breadwinner and one's not. If it's not, whatever the dynamic is, some people might feel entitled in their couple
To make
that
more decisions,
that they could,
or
they
to have more
don't need any,
power.
they don't need any
Yes.
authorization.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem very fair.
No.
I mean, I think that I should extend the same courtesy to Valentina as she does to me. And the only thing that we need to agree on is what that number is.
Yeah. And our
So,
level of comfort has changed, according to the size of our budget, but also as our trust in each other has incremented and we've gotten closer, because we kind of know each other more now in terms of what, like, financially, where we feel comfortable.
yes,
But also, there's things that, like Mark was saying, there's specific things that need to be outlined where you need to agree with your partner. And, like, for example, like, another example for both of us is, we've always known since the beginning of our relationship that we never wanted to put more on the credit card in a month than what we could pay off.
yeah,
So
and
that is like a very tangible
tangible.
goal for us,
Yeah,
or it's not even goal, it's kind of like a rule.
yeah,
So we know that there's a certain limit to what we can spend in a month.
yep.
And we both are wanting to be on track there. So that also makes us feel like we're working as a team.
Exactly. And it's that very concrete, very, so if you have the visualization component of things that are a little bit more abstract, this is like very basic. And sometimes some people fall into this trap of, like, okay, well, they do all the visualization, they do all the mindset work, they do all that, but when it comes down to, okay, well, find a number. What's the number?
Yeah,
What
they don't
is the
do their
number?
Excel sheets.
Oh, well, no, I don't. That
Yes.
that no.
They
I
don't know
leave
what
that
they
up to,
spend
yeah.
like a month. Like Mark, okay, so in our dynamic, and it could be different in yours, like he's the biggest breadwinner in the household. But what I do is, like, I'll do a list, and actually I'm going to be working on it this week. We were talking about it. I put all the expenses down. So I've known for like years what is our, like, how much we tend to spend on, like, restaurants a month, on our activities, what we spend on school, like, for the schools, for the children. Our children go to private schools. Like, what's our budget normally when it comes to clothing? And knowing that is so empowering, because sometimes you can sit down with your partner and see where you might be able to save money, or where you
Mhm.
might be, like, wasting money,
Yes,
and where you could build another fountain of, like, savings by
agreed.
eliminating something that really doesn't, at the end of the day, make your life any
Yeah,
happier.
it
But
doesn't.
unless you look at those numbers, you won't really realize just how much. I mean, you might be spending so much on entertainment, but you have no idea.
Yep. And you're not really enjoying it. You're not
Yes.
really, you're going through the motion of doing things that you'd already committed to in the past. that you're not really enjoying. That's not really giving you more happiness. So you could say to yourself, okay, wow, it's taking more time, it's taking more resources, and I'm not really enjoying it as much. So let me eliminate that. And then that'll give me more time to do X, Y, and Z. It'll give me
Yes.
more resources to do X, Y, and Z, or it'll give me more of an opportunity to save. So that's a very tangible way of coming to those conclusions.
Yeah, and by doing the numbers, by doing that work that's not fun, because for me, like sit down and go, okay, this is gonna take hours. Like I have to go through everything. It takes me a lot of time, but I always see it as like something that I'm investing within our partnership and our couple. That and it's something that at the end of the day, when we do it, we're like, oh,
Yeah.
this makes us feel so good, so united, and it does help attract abundance because where focus goes, energy flows.
Yep.
So if you're thinking that you're going to be attracting all this abundance and all this money, and a lot of people make a lot of money and they still don't have money. They don't know how to keep money.
Yep.
They know how to make money, but they don't know how to hold it
Yep.
and how to make space for it so that it's always there. And I think that there's such pleasure, like you can end up finding pleasure in like literally saving
Yeah. I
and
agree.
not in like spending everything. Makes you feel so responsible,
Yeah.
so good.
Saving, spending, giving. I mean,
Saving, spending,
those
giving.
are those are three pillars, and
Absolutely.
finding joy in those three components is very satisfying
Yes.
with regards to finance. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then goal setting. That's like you need to set like goals also. So you need to know where you are at the moment, right? What you've been spending throughout the year. We recommend at least getting together like 3 times a year
Yeah.
where you sit down and yeah, you're going to be sacrificing. Nothing comes without sacrifice.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you might be sacrificing like a Saturday where you might be watching
A Netflix binge,
there you go.
or
Or like, I don't know, an outing somewhere, like a hike or whatever you do that you do with your couple that you enjoy. But I can guarantee that if you spend that time that Saturday, if you actually sacrifice it and you actually give focus to abundance and to money, it will bring you so much closer together. And it'll be really paying attention to something that deserves paying attention to because
agreed.
money is like one of the top 2 things that is the leading cause for divorce.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
So it's something that needs to be worked on, just like intimacy, just like every other aspect of your life.
Yep.
And we feel very, very passionate about this.
Absolutely.
And we want
absolutely.
you guys to have a beautiful, abundant life as a couple. And we want you, the only way to do that is really to do things together. Like we get together at least 3 times a year. We also get together with our financial advisors. We look at our numbers. We might see, okay, this month we kind of blew it. Next month we got to, get back on track. But those are the things that really we think we want to share with you because we know that that stuff works.
So feel free to comment, give us your feedback, let us
Yes.
know, how your dynamic is working, not working, and be honest, don't be afraid to say, but my husband's like this, my wife's like that, my spouse, my boyfriend, and so on and so forth. Like, oh, but my parents were like this. Once you start articulating where the challenges are coming from, you can start having a better understanding, unpacking, and bring more truth to the matter, and that'll give you more empowering beliefs about where you're at.
Yes, absolutely. So go and write to us, mamasconganas.com/145. We look forward to hearing from you guys and we wish you lots of abundance. Until next time, mamacita. Bye bye.
Ciao.
1,000,000 de gracias por suscribirte, escuchar y compartir nuestro podcast. Si tienen preguntas, comentarios y más, pueden visitar nuestra página web mamasconganas.com or follow us on social media at mamasconganas. You can also write me directly at info@mamasconganas.com. Hasta la próxima, es Valentina recordándote, don't be a mama con drama. Let's be mamas con ganas.